Oh, hi there, friends. Mandy here. Restorative grief is all about creating easy access to healing no matter where or who you are. That's why I want you to remember that if you want grief support beyond a podcast, my 31-day guidebook is available to order on Amazon. Embracing our losses without losing ourselves is a reflective journey into the holistic needs of grievers and learning to support yourself, mind, heart, body, and spirit. Don't just wing it. You can lean into grief work with a guide. The link for the book and more are available in the show notes, and as always, you can reach out with questions. But for now, let's get on to this week's episode. Welcome back to Restorative Grief with Mandy Capehart. You are listening to episode 172, titled The Emotional Toll of Politics. Think back. When is the last time you were so shocked / offended / upset / unhappy that you had no idea what to say? Well, today we're talking about something I think we've all felt one time or another, that gut-wrenching, throat-closing moment when politics come up and you're so angry or upset you have no idea what words you can use. Maybe you're afraid of starting a fight, or maybe you're just so overwhelmed that you freeze. Either way, this conversation is for those moments when grief, anger, and politics all collide, creating an experience that I'm calling Angriefolitical. Angriefolitical conversations are scary but necessary because they reflect deeper personal stakes, identify where we might get off track in conversation, and help us learn how to start creating space for difficult conversations with empathy, love, and ownership of our own values without causing harm or othering our audience. I often find myself asking, how many therapy sessions per week is too many? As the American political season continues to remain intense and unending, I'm one overwhelmed trauma specialist and grief coach. The emotional toll of the political climate is staggering. Reactions ranging from apathy to full-blown political obsessions, and I've been told countless times to be quiet and focus on my own life. Once I was even told I'm failing as a professional for daring to share political conversations. But here's the thing. It's not about the election or isolated political issues anymore. What I'm witnessing more and more is what I call Angriefolitical, the emotional exhaustion and embodied grief of constantly encountering people who wield their right to believe whatever they want as a defense. They excuse themselves from accountability or responsibility for the harm that their beliefs cause, especially when those beliefs are shaping legislation actively endangering marginalized communities. And this is why we're losing relationships, not because we're intolerant of different opinions, but because those exact opinions often represent an inherent contradiction. Angriefolitical conversations happen often when someone says, "I'm not arguing, but," or claims that they're just stating their beliefs. And in those moments, they're deflecting responsibility. What's being missed here, but they're also minimizing the very valid argument about your values as well, that real harm is happening, and they are directly or indirectly contributing to it. What's being missed is the impact of those beliefs on real lives. Political opinions don't exist in a vacuum. They shape policies that have devastating consequences for people who are less privileged and already marginalized. And so these beliefs aren't just abstract ideas. I'm so upset and unable to speak because they're actively harming people that I care about. So when we walk away from relationships or even just conversations in the aftermath of Angriefolitical conversations like these, again, it's not because we don't tolerate differing opinions. It's because those beliefs held so strongly often stand in direct contradiction to the kind and compassionate person someone claims to be. There's a disconnect that we witness between the values that people say they hold and the harm their beliefs can perpetuate. For those of us whose lives and communities are directly impacted, it's impossible to ignore that contradiction. Now, the online atmosphere is where many of these conversations are happening, and they are not in good faith. Online is a wonderful place to be when you curate the space you occupy. But so often in our pain, we take to the digital streets, shouting to be heard and attracting people who were never interested in making space for you. But in real life, face to face with others, We have to remember the same defensive posturing is present in everyone in the conversation, yourself and bystanders included. Taking the risk to share your vulnerable thoughts on the state of the world is not something we do with every person, but when we do feel enough trust to open up, the last thing we need to hear is the same spiritual bypassing, shaming, minimizing, centering, or platitudes that are offered to grievers. These conversations and the political atmosphere are happening on a daily basis in my life, and I am both breaking down and fired up about it. In fact, in the few days after the election, or weeks after and months, I found myself crying and wishing I could find the words I needed. I wanted to host conversations, and often I did, but with each one, I felt the space darken, comment by comment. Accusations of name-calling and unkindness accompanied passive comments about my words that suggest I'm better off being ignored. And for those of us keeping track, that is minimizing. The problem I have is that it's those same commenters demanding unity who want me to be nice or to be more quiet. So check in with yourself right now. Do you want that too? Is unity the main goal of these conversations you want to have? Or do you feel your own version of Angriefolitical rising within? There are so many lanes we can walk down from these intersections, but this is the trailhead where we all need to take several seats and refer back to our map. When we are minimized, decentered in our own experiences, or politely offered a spoken "please shut up," we are not going to find the right words if we have not done our own trauma and grief work in our lives first. When we try to advocate for others, but fail to see our roles and our privileges and our pains in the light of day, what emerges in those conversations is a much weaker version of what we're hoping to say. Advocacy without personal healing is like building a house on a weak foundation. No matter how beautiful or strong it seems from the outside, without a solid base, it risks collapsing under pressure. Our trauma work strengthens that foundation, allowing us to advocate from a place of stability and resilience. It took courage to stop sharing my frustration in a space with people who could not hear it. And while that does not mean that I am done talking about politics or grief and the intersection between them, obviously, it does mean that I am allowing my own heart to rest through an active and intentional pursuit of joy as resistance. Joy is a value in life that we all want to experience, but often it can feel inappropriate or unavailable when so many griefs are happening around us. Our work in advocacy gets loud and messy in these moments, never resting, never backing down, and never relenting, even when we recognize we might be causing more harm. But if we are determined to make an impact in our communities, yes, it can start with conversations in our immediate circles, but it must be in partnership with organizations who can teach us that are already doing advocacy work in our cities. As with all things, we would not make ourselves available 24/7 for volunteer hours with those organizations. We would require rest. And frankly, no organization worth working alongside would demand 24/7 access to you either. Rest is an integral part of being human, of navigating the difficulty of Angriefolitical moments, and of learning how to create common understanding that moves the needle toward lasting change. If we are not giving ourselves space to rest, we are unable to pursue joy, plain and simple. Angriefolitical moments are a flag desperately waving for our attention. We need to step away from the impact we're trying to make and recognize no ground is being gained. Angriefolitical conversations are full of emotional bypassing disguised as dialogue. It sounds like an insistence that hope is present and everything will work out. On paper, that looks like encouragement, but within us, we recognize the invalidation of our expressions and concerns. It's a visceral, embodied experience, making it hard to tell where we can even begin to help them understand. Angriefolitical is waking up with the weight of the world on your chest, knowing that a political decision isn't just an abstract debate, but life or death reality for many people. Grief is political. Politics make us angry, and anger is also grief. Angriefolitical is the deep sorrow of knowing that while I may have the privilege of intellectualizing my anger, others, due to the color of their skin, their gender, their sexuality, or immigration status, live in that grief daily. And when I attempt to share these intersecting emotions, I don't need rebuttals. I need people to hold space. And this is where many of our conversations are breaking down. When I've said my piece and still sense an embodied refusal to understand what I'm trying to explain, that is where Angriefolitical sensations erupt. And in these spaces, we need the rest. We need joy. We need permission to step back and lean into our own work of healing that needs to happen. Regardless of our own belonging in a marginalized community or not, we are harmed by the current political system in power, even the people who voted for it. But communicating this as true and making the message clear enough cannot happen if we are drowning in complex, layered, deeply personal Angriefolitical experiences. So when I rest and recover and allow my own personal hurts to receive intention and care, I can return to those conversations and remember that they're more than a debate where points are scored for knowing the most facts. Each conversation is about human beings, individuals, safety, and the future of our collective well-being. To dismiss that with simplistic reasoning, or worse, to reduce it to just politics, is to completely overlook the humanity behind the issues. And when we are well tended in our care for ourselves, we can address that simplistic reasoning and the bypassing and all the other methods of violent communication with a similar sense of care for the other person we are talking with. For example, in a recent conversation I had with a family member, it became clear that our dialogue just was not about different political opinions. No matter the view I offered, the values I articulated, even shared, or the appeal to their humanity, we landed on different opinions about the definition and importance of human flourishing. My perspective of the collective wellness we all need in order to heal was dismissed as soft and weak. The conversation perfectly embodied my grief and fear over what those opinions mean for people that I love. It was not just about what I think would be best for the world. It was about how personal loss, systemic oppression, and societal injustices have shaped my perspective in ways that couldn't be easily explained and certainly aren't up for debate. Creating space for Angriefolitical conversations is not only vital, it is revolutionary. To sit with someone else's grief and anger, and to resist the urge to not argue and instead say, I see you, is a radical act of empathy. In these moments, we're not only offering emotional safety, but we are inviting them into a doorway of potential transformation. After all, you can't change someone's mind by attacking their position, and that's not the goal. We invite others into their own growth process and grief work by connecting with their personhood, with who they are, with their hearts. To create conversations for ourselves like this, we must first recognize that no one else can dictate how or why we feel grief or anger in response to political matters. These are real, valid emotions that stem from lived experiences, and dismissing them only leads to further harm. So how do we move forward with advocacy in these spaces? Well, first, I've said it before, we've got to do our own work. Has that been clear enough? It's not permission for you to remain distant or tucked away, insulated by your privilege while you work out your stuff, but it is a requirement that you remain curious with yourself. How might your own story and past be surfacing in these conversations? And how can you address your trauma story and activations before trying to educate and support others to look toward theirs? But once you feel you are in a healthy, sustainable rhythm of self-care and grief work, then I want you to know that as you step back toward the work of advocacy, it's okay to burn bridges. If someone causes you harm, insists on misunderstanding you, or wants to minimize everything about your perspective or story through violent rhetoric or talking points or just sharing their opinion so they are heard too, that burning bridge will light your path forward toward conversations that are looking for flourishing, that are designed and intended for both people to be heard and for growth to happen. It is okay if unity does not result in every situation. It is okay to release people and walk away, because remember, access to you is a privilege, and ultimately, their growth work is their own. But if they are ready to talk and hear you share as well, you begin by listening. When you hear someone expressing their Angriefolitical feelings, resist the urge to debate them. Start by acknowledging their pain and anger, not as a political challenge, but as a deeply human experience. Ask what is at stake for them and how you can be a part of a conversation that leads to healing rather than division. Those questions might sound like this. Do you have life experiences that have shaped that viewpoint? How would your life be impacted if this did or didn't happen? What makes this issue so personal for you? I found that oftentimes the most impactful way to challenge someone's misinformed or maybe narrow political conclusions, it's not with facts or counter-arguments, but with vulnerability. It is much harder to hate or ignore someone when you can see their humanity and similarities to yourself. Sharing my grief, my fear, and my anger not as weapons, but as invitations to empathy can open doors that would otherwise remain firmly shut. A peacemaker is needed. And when someone demands unity, what they are playing at is peacekeeper, and those two roles are wildly different. For these intense and charged conversations, a person willing to regulate their own nervous system and move toward others in conflict from a foundation of love and not fear can change the world. When we see the scarcity and harm narratives that are pushed forth, we are witnessing a value set foundationally built on fear. Emphasis is placed on severe and negative outcomes, but couched in phrases like family values, love, tradition, and even safety. And they are driving us toward a future where control and certainty are the true primary values. The alternative here, it's love. Leading with love, not control or certainty, allows us to manifest our values with less effort and pain. Love leads a wide path through chaos. The generosity is an overflow, but not because we're scrambling to be cared for. Our needs are being met because we show up for ourselves and to ensure that the collective is thriving, and we are a contributive, active part of that collective. Because in the end, it's not about who wins or loses an argument. These conversations need to happen, and they need to shift, because I want to be a part of a world where we can navigate the complexities of politics, grief, anger, and other intense conversations in ways that honor one another as humans. The state of politics and interconnectedness is hard, brutally so, but maybe, just maybe, if we can find the courage to have our own Angriefolitical conversations, then we can start to collectively heal. I know this conversation has been intense, so thank you for continuing to listen. And if it resonates with you, I would encourage you to go deeper within the works of Resmaa Menakem and Dr. Shaniqua Walker-Barnes. Their names will be in the show notes. If you're not ready for your own Angriefolitical advocacy work, but you need to learn how to rest with the discomfort of your story and your grief, then start by learning about the NAP ministry. All of these resources can support you as you explore your own embodied responses and engage in the work of healing for yourself and for your community. Start by examining your embodied reactions to these difficult conversations and seek out resources that ground you in the healing work for yourself and for your community. We will all be better for it. Thank you for listening to episode 172 of Restorative Grief. At the intersection of grief, anger, and politics is the potential for collective healing. By doing our own internal trauma work first and engaging with others from a place of empathy and seeing who they are beyond our assumptions, we create space for transformation in ourselves and in the world around us. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, I hope you'll make space for yourself to explore any offense or irritation or inspiration you might feel from this conversation. When we have a reaction internally, that is a source of our embodied wisdom, inviting us to do our own work and explore a new way of thinking. No one can do that work for us, and certainly no one wants to hear from us if we haven't done our own work, especially when we start telling others how they should be showing up in the world. So before you go, please remember to subscribe to this podcast, follow me on social media, and leave a 5-star review if you like what you heard. The essays and interviews I have planned for the rest of this year are just beautiful and life-altering, and that is my unbiased opinion. So I hope you'll stay here with us at Restorative Grief and keep working toward a more integrative and supportive life for yourself on the other side of loss. And as always, before we go, one last thing. Please remember, the only solution for grief is to do the work of grieving. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week.